Well, first of all, thank you very much for being here. And thank you also for organizing this event at a time when, I mean, in the media in general and officials and all, they think there are two things about Iraq. Either you forget completely about Iraq because there is Iraq fatigue, it's called, or you start joining the US alliance in bombardment of Iraq. So this is different to talk about what's happening actually now and give you some picture about. The foreign policy now of almost 30 countries around the world, including Norway, including Denmark, which they never been interested before, in this clear way of following the US policy. They are taking part now into airstrikes in Iraq. So the picture, there are 30 countries combining efforts led by the US for the bombardment, leading airstrikes in Iraq. Until today, there were 400 airstrikes. 2 weeks ago, there were 89 airstrikes combined between the international alliance, US-led international alliance, and the Iraqi government, bombarding areas. They call it is highly selective areas to do. The claim, the official claim, is first of all, or were they trying to sell to the population, whether it's the American population public or the European or the Iraqi people. First of all, we are sending troops to assist and train only. Second, we are not sending troops or no boots on the ground. This is what Obama is saying, and I'm quoting him. No boots on the ground. We are not deploying combat forces, but only the advisor and things. By the way, the figure of the US forces in Iraq up to now is up to 8,000. And they are divided in some of the bases in various areas in Iraq, and also within the combat of the US embassy, the biggest in the world, as you know. So it's this, they protecting the diplomats and all, but also combat forces are there already. This also is. And most important, the claim is this is happening because the Iraqi government is requesting our help. So our deployment is as a response, kind of assisting, helping in the war of terror, as well as giving it the cover of humanitarian aid. We are helping Iraqi people in order to fight terrorism and overcome their differences. Because the picture now is Iraqis are killing each other. So the US forces and the British and the rest of it are there to help protect Iraqis from themselves. This is the same argument, by the way, used during the American war against Vietnam. But under different name. They were, when they divided between North Vietnam and the South Vietnamese and all, but also it's what they call it at that time is internal aggression. So among the Vietnamese themselves, internal aggression. Now it's Iraqis are, the civil war, or Iraqis are killing each other and putting an aid to sectarianism. Forgetting to or choosing not to remember that sectarianism did not exist in Iraq before. Iraqis been living together for thousands of years, and the main feature of Iraqi society, the mosaic of Iraqi society, is intermarriages. It's not like in Northern Ireland, for example, where the Catholics don't get married from Protestants or this divide is very clear in education, in society, in religion, in marriage. It's never happened in Iraq before. It's the intermarriage. A third of the people living in Baghdad of Arab and Kurd backgrounds. So even the races, Arab and Kurds, are intermarrying. I myself, Kurdish, Arabic, Sunni, Shiite at the same time. So I got the whole thing, and I'm not unique at all. This is Iraqi society as such. So sectarianism or claim of protecting Iraqis from themselves, it has to be examined and questioned about the US policy or US-led policy in Iraq. So we have all these troops now to assist and help Iraqis. But again, I mean, if you think about it, if you've been following what's happened in the last 11 years, there were billions of dollars spent on training and assisting Iraqi army. What's happened to it? They've been assisted by the US forces, they've been assisted by the British, as well as other countries. So what's difference happening now? What's happened? Why they really, the army, which is in Mosul city, in the north of Iraq and in other major places in Iraq, within 2 days collapsed completely. This army, which is over 1 million, the forces, the army, plus the security forces, plus the police, there are over 1 million people being trained and assisted before June the 10th, when ISIS overtook Mosul city. That means two things. Either there wasn't an army at all, so it's a virtual army, or ghost army, corruption. And we know for a fact that each commander in the army, sometimes, now the truth is coming out, are talking about, like he says, I have 1,000 soldiers. What he does, in fact, he hasn't got 1,000 soldiers. He himself there and other 5 people there, but they claiming the 1,000 soldiers for money. So the salaries goes to him, this general, this commander, and it's coming out the truth now. So either this or that specific city on the 10th of June was attacked by thousands of ISIS. But all the figures says the maximum number of people of those ISIS, a brutal, barbaric organization, were 300 people. So how come thousands of army collapsed in no time? They changed their clothes, actually, took off their uniforms, and then walked out, escaping, fleeing the place in no time, within hours. And not only in Mosul, the second biggest city in Iraq, but also in other major cities. In no time whatsoever, that happened. And now is the US with the bombardment, they telling us there are more ISIS. So why are you continuing the bombardment? Why subjecting civilians to the bombardment? After all, ISIS, this brutal organization, is among the people. If we want to believe the story, the narrative you are telling us, it is among the people. So each airstrike is actually, you are killing civilians. You are not killing them. And if you succeeded if your argument, we accepted that you are succeeding now in taking over and killing all those things, there must be someone is lying. So either you are exaggerating the figures you are giving to the outside world, because what started like 300 ISIS, within 2 months, the CIA telling us there are over 100,000 ISIS in Iraq. And last week, Barzani, who is the president of Kurdistan region, he is telling us there are 200,000 ISIS in Iraq. So somebody is lying or exaggerating the presence of ISIS or not succeeding at all. So we have to really dismantle this fabrication or this narrative which we are told in the media time after time after time about the presence of ISIS and who is it and why they are there. Why are those forces is also. It's not just the 30 countries fighting ISIS. It's not just the over 1 million Iraqi secret forces, army and police are also fighting ISIS. But also there is the popular mobilization units. And the popular mobilization units is something which is immediately after June, the 10th of June, when Mosul fell under the ISIS forces, there was a fatwa by the high clerical figure in Iraq, the highest, it's like the Pope, called Sistani. And he called for jihad against ISIS. And this meant is that young people, very, very zealous young people, they went and they joined the army in their thousands in order to join the jihad, the Islamic jihad against ISIS. Right. Those people are not trained. They are led by very sectarian incentive, because they've been promised if they die in this jihad, obviously heaven will open before them. It is there. So they are like, some of them are unemployed and they are paid money. They are paid salaries. Salaries are, which is very good for them. It's something between $300, $200, $500, something according to what they're going to do. But the main problem remains is they are there for vengeance. And they started, and they are protected by the government. So they are militias, various militias now, holding the law in their hands, and they are acting irresponsibility to vengeance against the crimes of ISIS. ISIS suddenly became to represent certain sect in Iraq. While this mobilization with the army, with the forces, with the US led also, they are the pro-government in Iraq and leading this campaign of killing and arbitrary killing. And they started by targeting prisons. Whoever in prison from the other sect being killed in prison, because they are absolutely with no way of defending themselves. They are already in prison, so the killing spree is going on. In addition to the bombardment, what is achieved, the airstrikes, is creating more fear and terrorizing more people. So people who were even staying in their homes, they have to leave. The destruction is led. And we had, even before this, the Iraqi government itself, under Maliki, been leading this campaign of airstrikes and bombardment against Anbar, which is in the west of Iraq, and another 4 or 5 provinces, important provinces in Iraq, against its kind of collective punishment, because he thinks that Al-Qaeda is there, the Ba'athists are there, the terrorists are there. So gradually, being internalized that people who are living in those provinces, whoever they are terrorists. So it's a legalization of killing those people. It's become kind of a policy that you are free to attack those people, to target them, to kill them, and you can escape without being held responsible with complete impunity. So 400,000 people within 2 months were absolutely displaced from Anbar area alone. Those are mostly women and children, and no one talks about it. Hardly anybody. We didn't hear the US complaining about that. We didn't hear the British government or anybody, except there are reports confirming all this, the facts and figures, by Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and some of them by the United Nations Human Rights Council. So there are reports about it, but actually nothing to be done except recommendations after recommendations, and the Iraqi government think, well, it is the Iraqi democracy that is targeted, so we are justified to do whatever this. Drones are used now to target people, as well as the barrel bombs. The barrel bombs being used by the Assad regime in Syria, and it became like almost accepted kind of weapon, which is prohibited by international. This is prohibited. It is discriminating, and it's kind of it causes massive destruction and killing beyond what is reasonable within a war itself, within the laws of wars. So the destruction is absolutely complete with these barrels. And the barrels, actually, the Human Rights Watch documented the consistent usage of unguided air-dropped bombs in populated areas, urban areas in Mosul, Tikrit, Fallujah, and other places. And according to the latest report, the attacks hit areas surrounding mosques, government buildings, hospitals, and power and water stations. They are not against just terrorists. It is a collective punishment against Iraqis, whoever of them raise his voice or her voice against what's happening, or to talk about or indicate about it, is thing. How did it start, this whole thing? It started by a simple fact that people demonstrated and held vigils against demanding the release of women detainees. The Iraqi government denied there are women detainees. They said we don't have any. But the people consistently, they were on vigil saying there are women detainees. We know there are women detainees, and there's been a report by one MP in the Iraqi parliament which confirmed that fact, that there are women detainees. He's seen them, he reported the report, no one listened to him. He was on television day and night speaking about that. He talked about the abuse, violent abuse, and the rape of women detainees. He spoke also, and there are so many reports about this fact, that women were held as hostages by the Iraqi government in lieu of their demanding the surrender of their male relatives. So they are imprisoned, waiting for the male relatives to surrender because they are accused of being terrorists. Women themselves are either accused of being terrorists or potential terrorists. So it is a bizarre notion now. It has started to be applied in Iraq, is the whole thing. In addition to, there is Article 4, anti-terror law in Iraq, which really anyone can be arrested if they are accused of being a terrorist, and you can be kept in a prison according to what's called the secret informer. Secret informer playing very big role in the society because they get a lot of money out informing about terrorists. So it could be for, I hate you, I want to occupy your land, I want to take over your house. So secret informers is there, and there are thousands of them. I remember once I read during the French resistance against the Nazi occupation, there were thousands and thousands of those secret informers. We have them now, also in Iraq, playing the same role. So with unfair justice, no fair justice system, no transparent justice system, as well as, the freedom of acting in a lawless society, women being detained. So the vigils being continuous, they were for 6 months in a peaceful way. People were gathering every day, asking for the release of women prisoners, in addition to other demands, like the uprooting of the Ba'athist, regarding this Article 4, anti-terror, to be abolished in law so people can seek justice. If anything happening, go investigate the crime. This is what their demand was, and no response whatsoever. In fact, the response was they were bombarded in various places where they were gathering. There were two major massacres. Hawaii is one of them, where 85 people were killed, shot at. Some of them were even in their wheelchairs protesting, and they were killed. Leaders of the demonstration were shot at, some of them with imprisonment. And the fact appeared after that. Human Rights Watch issued a report, very well documented. There are 4,500 women detainees in Iraq. And the government did not do much about it. They released 5 of them, and they rearrested others, doing like manipulation of the whole cases. So this is how it started. The whole thing about giving birth to ISIS in Iraq. This is because Maliki at that time accused the people of Ramadi, Fallujah, Mosul, and all of being terrorists. People who are really nurturing ISIS, nurturing the Al-Qaeda, and giving birth to all this. So suddenly we were thinking, and it seemed like ISIS being a blessing for everybody in the world. Suddenly America is very pleased there is ISIS, because it started to respond, sending arms, selling arms to Iraq. Hellfires, all kinds of machineries, tons of machineries. F-16, they are agreeing suddenly about it and all. And there is a competition between the US, the British government, Russia, and China, suddenly to provide everything needed to fight this terrorist, horrendous organization, which became manufactured out of the blue there in Iraq, and Iraqis, whoever opposing the government, became ISIS. So even in writing now, if I write a column saying, let's question the facts about this ISIS, I immediately been accused. Immediately, I receive threats and accused of being pro-ISIS, which I don't know anything about this. I am not an Islamist, I am not a Ba'athist at all. If there is anything, I was a communist. But this is a ready-made, which seems absolutely like what Voltaire said once: if there wasn't God, there is a need to create God. So ISIS became a necessity, and the scapegoat for every single crime, and also the bleach to clean the hands of people who've been involved for 11 years in committing crimes in Iraq. One after the other. Not even one point in human rights, list of human rights that hasn't been violated in Iraq, and in a big way. And the killing is a spree of killing, it's a free hand there, because no one is held responsible. There is no law. There is no international law to condemn or to seek justice, and it's happening every day. So what kind of people are living there? How they are surviving this? After all, I mean, Iraqis, it's not this is the only this bombardment, the recent one. But also, we went through before that is the Iraq-Iran war. Before that, there was, after the occupation of Kuwait, the bombardment, then the sanctions, 13 years of sanctions, which caused 500,000 Iraqi kids to be killed and dying. And until now, third of the Iraqi girls suffering from stunt growth because of malnutrition. So the long-term effect, we're still living with it. And the use of prohibited weapons, like the depleted uranium, which is something, again, the legacy which we're going to live for many, many, many decades to come. So this complete destruction, people, how they live with it. We have desperate people. Absolutely desperate. Some of them, especially young people. I mean, there was a paper presented recently. I was in Ankara attending an international conference on Middle Eastern studies. And there was an Iraqi doctor who arrived there who led research among, it's a huge number of Iraqis within the university students. 43% of them, they wish to die. This is the young generation we're talking about. This is our future. Is 43%. We were sitting there shocked to see the result of the research being done. This is the destruction. When we say destruction, it's not an abstract word. It's you killing people in a slow way, day by day, year by year. And this is happening. And this is happening according to international law. No one has been punished for that. No one been held responsible in this whole situation. So there is silence, and there is also, in some cases, rewarding people who are committing these crimes, like Maliki, the ex-prime minister, who been, by all standards, been responsible about many of those things happening, but he been promoted within the new government. Apparently, the Swedish government now welcoming the change of government in Iraq and saying very nice things about it, is the new government, which is absolutely is a continuity the previous one, because the new prime minister, he is of the same political party, he's sectarian, he's immersed in corruption, the same like the previous one, and the previous one being promoted instead of prime minister to be the deputy of the president, instead of being held responsible about what's happened if you are really looking into a change of policy. So at least prove that to the people that there is hope. There will be some kind of justice, some kind of not escaping impunity, what the crime thinks. So there is silence in things. The latest report by UNAMI is the United Nations organization in Iraq. About October month, there are 4,100 Iraqis were killed or wounded. 4,100 Iraqis. And when I say wounded, that means at least 2/3 of them, they're going to die as well, because of the lack of the health service and no care whatsoever. The wounded we consider dead there, or disabled, and that's another kind of death for them, a long-term death and things. So this is October. It's after the bombardment and the airstrikes by the US-led international global alliance to save Iraqis. This is the kind of, the rate of it is thing. Corruption, because this government, like the previous one, nothing has improved. The corruption is immense. And there is, like 10 days ago, they discovered in Beirut 1.2 to $1.6 billion in a basement in Lebanon, in Beirut. This is in cash, the Iraqi money. Someone managed to smuggle it, so in cash, everything. And there is a talk now in Iraq. There are MPs who are talking, some of them. It depends on what political party there, because each one is trying to prove himself from the previous government that he is really a clean person, so accusing the others. So suddenly we've seen is on television every night, kind of like a TV saga of each one is accusing the other. But there is a talk about absolutely something like $12 billion disappeared in the last couple of weeks when Maliki was there, and disappeared at that period. We're talking billions. And the British government now has in a big hoo-ha-ha is about the European Union asking them to pay 1.2 billion kind of money. I thought maybe they should ask the Iraqi government to supply some of that or give them in cash. carrying the thing. We have recycling of ministers. Whatever they tell you about elections, or someone is winning, or changing government, they are the same ministers. The changing of places. So the minister of oil now, the foreign minister became the minister of education, or the foreign minister was the minister of education. It's kind of this musical chairs, the game. They going round and round and all. It's the same faces. The same actually people who went inside with the U.S. Occupying forces to start with is nothing changed. Sectarianism is the same. The new prime minister, the same with it. He cannot do anything without the grand Ayatollah fatwa. Everyone, single person of them. So this is not democracy. It's not a country that ruled by law. It's ruled by fatwas. And fatwas by certain sects, not also for all the religious people or whatever. So they are purely we have this theocratic, but it is like in Iran in that sense to represent one part of the population rather than the whole population. I forgot to mention that in Iraq today we have something between 19 to 23 militias active on the ground. Militias, they have power, they have weapons, they have money. Also, they have the freedom of movement where the rest of the population are scared to move, and they can escape with any crime. And they are leading also this market of kidnapping. Kidnapping, it's become again very high in the last 2 months. And they targeting academics again, and they asking for ransoms. And they're in thousands of pounds, and in some cases, even when you pay the ransom, they kill your child. It doesn't matter. You will find your child near a rubbish bin or something. And it's happened also. We have documented cases. Within 1 week, there were 4 of the academics being kidnapped. They having now the father with the son, and something like this is things. So why is the U.S. keen now going back to Iraq? After all, I mean, Obama promised the American people, promised the world actually, that he is going to withdraw. And he did the partial withdrawal. Why is he keen on going back to Iraq? I think, in my humble opinion, is oil is still, the control of energy is still an important issue. For the US, and they cannot do without it. And like what Henry Kissinger said in the 70s, it's too good to be left to the Arabs, the oil. So still, it's very valid commodity. Second is arms. It's very good. Wars are very good for the arms cartel. And it's one of the biggest industry. War is an industry, and you have to feed it also. And we can prove that in the case of the British government, David Cameron, he appointed in February this year Emma Nicholson, Baroness Emma Nicholson. Emma Nicholson, if you don't know her, she was very active, a human rights activist when there was Saddam's regime, under the Ba'ath regime and Saddam's, up to 2003, when the occupation took place. And she was giving talks all around the world, defending human rights, especially for the Kurds and the Marsh Arabs in the south. So she became, for Iraqis, the Mother Teresa of human rights. But suddenly, in 2003, there was like you pressed on a button and switched completely. The women stopped talking altogether. Not a word about human rights. Despite Abu Ghraib, despite massacres, despite bombardment, every single filmmaker, photographer, painter, poet wrote something about Iraq and how it's been the destruction of Iraq. But Emma Nicholson, Mother Teresa, was completely silent about it. She changed completely. She was appointed the business envoy, the British government business envoy, trade envoy to Iraq. And she described Iraqi economy as, I'm quoting her, vibrant and booming. Also, she is urging, now she also goes back talking. She started back again, giving talks around the world. But what for? Not human rights. No, it's to promote UK arms deals, and is to make the best of the enormous opportunities Iraq offering us. And she said, we have to learn, and I'm quoting her, how to fight for lucrative contracts and how to compete for mega defense contracts. These are her words. The human rights woman is. So this is another aspect of it. I think many people, regarding Iraqi young people, Iraqi men and women as well, there is this lethal combination of sectarianism, of corruption locally, plus the silence of the outside world, if not taking part in strengthening this corrupt, brutal regime and providing it with arms. This lethal combination of feeling you are left on your own to face this injustice, a huge injustice. After all, Iraqis never threatened Europe, never threatened America. We never did anything of that scale, been accused, but never happened at all, nothing proven yet. So this combination is leading a lot of people to extremism, and in an understandable way. Is because when they see there is no hope whatsoever in the future, when 43% of university students thinking of death, so they think maybe death will lead us to achieve something. It is when there is no hope, when you feel angry, and you've been subjected to this inhuman, demeaning treatment for many years. That's what leads to extremism. And that's definitely causing the insecurity, and injustice lead to insecurity of the whole world. It's not enough in Iraq or in Syria or in Yemen where people are bombarded with drones, but it's definitely going to touch Europe and other countries, and we see it nowadays is this. So if we're thinking about a real solution, it has to be genuine among the people themselves. It is about how people in democratic countries put an end to this unethical foreign policies against people of other countries, and to seek equal relationship built on trust, on respect of what justice is above all. Otherwise, we won't see any hope or feeling anything in the future. So thank you very much. Thank you.